we're driving in a 2017 Nissan Rogue, and I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but you can hear that there's a road noise, and it's actually not the road noise. It's most likely a bearing or a CV joint. And normally you can make the sound get worse or less by putting a load on it. And I've been driving this around and trying to load it, going around corners, and I can't seem to make it change much. So what we'll do is when we get to the shop, I'll use a mechanic stethoscope and we'll pinpoint the noise. I am betting that it is a rear wheel bearing on the left side, and we will diagnose it, and if it is what I think it is, then we will replace the bearing. See you back at the shop. Yesterday when we were driving down the road, we could hear the bearing noise, so I've got the thing up on jack stands ready to work on. Took the tire off, and you can see the assembly here. You can see the brake rotor and the brake caliper and everything. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the brake caliper. There's two bolts, one up here, one down here, 17 millimeter head on them. I'm going to take those out and take this off. I took out the two brake caliper bolts. They're both exactly the same length, so you don't have to worry about which one goes up on top and which one goes on the bottom. And then we will remove the brake caliper. Pull it off like that. Look at the brake pads, they're getting a little bit thin, so I'd better be thinking about putting some pads on this. See there, you can see they're getting pretty thin.
Which one?
Right in, let me set this up here and I'll show you so you can look at it. Right in here, this is the brake pad wear area, and it should be like 3 times thicker than that. So I should replace those. It's pretty easy. Just get this far, just pop those out, pop the new ones in, and put it back on. It's real simple. And of course, if you're going to do that, you got to make sure that both sides of the caliper are smooth. And if you want to be real technical, you take a mic and go across there and make sure that it's not, below specs on the thickness there. But usually, just with normal wear, they're not going to be, especially if they're not grooved. If it's smooth, you're okay just to throw another set of pads on. So we'll do that next time. I'm not prepared to do that right now with parts. The next thing we're going to do is take off the rotor. So we just grab a hold of it, it just slides off like that. So you can see that both sides of the rotor are in real good condition. It's not grooved or anything, so it's still really good. We'll set that aside. Oh, also, you can see inside here is the braking area for the emergency brake. That area in there, which isn't going to wear hardly at all because there won't really be any rotation of the pads wearing on there, because it's just when you're stopped and the pads expand. See the pads here? These expand out on the inside of that bore, and that's the emergency brake. So these will never wear out really, because they don't really get any wear. So next we're gonna have to take let's see, looks like we're gonna have to take this brake assembly apart here and take off this shield here. So I'll look here and set the brake caliper aside, and let's see. So these will be just like a small version of regular drum brakes on a car. So I'll have to look at this here and see exactly what I got to do. I've never been into this exact thing before, so I got to see how it's all together. But usually you just have to spread these apart, get them off the mounts at the top and the bottom, and then there's the springs that hold it together. So you've got to take a pair of pliers and release these springs to release the tension so that you can pull that apart. So I'll inspect that and I'll get right back with a pair of pliers and we'll go through that. Looks like this is just like a standard drum brake setup where we've got a spring clip here, and then there's a pin that comes through that's turned 90 degrees to the slot. So we'll can you see with the camera there? We'll compress this spring clip, and we'll turn that pin there, and then release the clip there. There's another clip on the other side here, so we'll compress that. Turn the pin, and so we'll take those clips off, and then we just have to be sure and watch out where all the springs go, because that can get confusing if you don't take good note of which spring goes where when you go to put it back together. So we got an orange one there, we got a black one there, and then there's another one on the bottom that's white. So we'll just take note of that. There's orange, black, and white, and put them back in the same order when we put this assembly back together. All right, I'm going to take this clip off here. So I'm going to compress the spring, turn the pin 90 degrees, and then the clip comes right off. See, it's just a spring clip. And I'm going to do that on the other side here. Compress it, turn it 90 degrees, and then the clip comes right off. Now, I'm going to need to release this spring here. I'll take the orange one like that. And I'll do this black one here. And we'll try and keep it together so we don't have any issue with remembering which one goes where when we put it back together, hopefully. And be careful also, there's a spacer down in here that we got to remember where that goes. The spacer goes in between the two shoes. So we'll pull that out right now so it doesn't drop, and we can remember the orientation that it went in. So it went in just like this. So I'm going to lay it just like it went in, so I don't have a problem remembering how it goes back. So I pull these apart, and then the cable that actuates it is hooked on right there, and there's a pin that holds it. So it just slides off that pin. So I'm going to leave the orange spring on right here so I remember that's where it went, and I'll lay that whole assembly right back in there the way it went so I know how to put it back. So these pins that held the shoes on, they'll just hang there, and they can't go back, they can't drop out, so they're captured there, so we don't have to worry about losing them. And the actuation cable and leverage bar here will just hang. It's okay the way it is. All right, we need to get this nut off. It's a 30 millimeter, and there's a retainer pin here. We gotta bend this, get it out. Like that. Remove that, set it aside. Then we put on the impact, and I'm gonna put a little bit of PB Blaster on there, just to make sure that those threads are good.
Smooth.
And we'll use the impact on it. And take that off. So now we got that. We'll set the clip and the nut aside. Now we've got to get these 4 bolts out Just a sec, let me grab the replacement part and I'll show you what it looks like. This is what we're taking off, and this is what we're going to replace. So we got these 4 bolts, and they come in from the back side, which makes it a little bit harder. So now we got to be able to reach. Now you got to come in from the back and take off the 4 bolts that go into here to hold this onto there. And it's pretty tough getting in there. There is room to get in there, but you're going to have to use your own combination of extensions and so forth. The heads on the bolts are 17 millimeter, and I would recommend using 1/2-inch drive where you can, and the fewer extensions as possible so that you can get in there and get as much leverage as possible. But you're kind of limited on the length of ratchet or breaker bar you use in there, and you're just gonna have to play around with it with the tools you've got. But they're in there pretty tight, and it's pretty tough, but it is doable, and just kind of giving you a heads up on that. So I'm going to take those out, and then we'll pull this assembly apart here.
Okay.
All right, I've used my little adapter assembly here to go in there. I've taken out the top one and the bottom one on this side, and so far they're both the same length, so we don't have to worry about getting anything mixed up. Now I'm gonna go in and try and get this one. I've already cracked them loose because I didn't want you to have to see all the swearing and everything while I was loosening these, because they're pretty tight. It was pretty tough, but okay. All right, I got those 4 bolts out. One of them still inside there,
Point where it is.
but they're there, and bottom, and they're all the same length. One's still in there. And I'm gonna pull this bearing hub off. So where's my orange hammer? Tap on the shaft a little bit, make sure it comes out of there. I'll spray a little bit of PB Blaster in there. Great stuff for freeing up anything that stuck a little bit. Just keep it away from the brake linings because it's not good for those. A little bit. There we go. There, oh, there's the old one. And then we just do the reverse to put it back together. I'll give you some updates as we put it back together if I run into anything that is unusual other than a direct reverse of what we already did to take it apart. I'm going to show you what this old one sounds like now that we've got it out, if you can hear it. And here's the new one. Quite a difference, especially when you're going down the road at 75 miles an hour. Sounds like you're on a roller coaster. Put a little bit of PB Blaster on the splines. Make sure it slides together nice and easy. And I gotta slip this back over. Brake assembly over there first. And up there. Get it into place. And we'll slip the new hub over. Lined up. And I'll slip a bolt through from the back. Easier said than done. We'll get it. I use my 3/8 drive extensions here to kind of slip the bolt in. Move that out of the way. Put the hub back on there. I've got the bolts, all 4 bolts started from the back there. So I'm gonna tighten that up. Then we'll put the nut on. I'll show you when it's time to put the nut on, but I'm just gonna mess around with tightening those up. That just takes a while, messing around with 2 different lengths of extensions and 1/2-inch drive, 3/8 drive, whatever works, you know, with the right length of ratchet so it doesn't hit on everything. And that depends on each person's set of tools, so it really doesn't do you any good for you to watch me doing it with my tools. So I'll get those 4 bolts tightened up, and then we'll come back and show you the next step.
It's ready. Oh, I need the light. Okay.
I got all 4 of those tightened up from the back now. Now we're going to put the nut back on. I'm going to put a little bit of PB Blaster on there. My favorite stuff, as you can tell. It's awesome. Maybe they'll sponsor me.
Oh, it did.
That's okay. We'll put the nut on. Hey, why not?
We need sponsor.
Yeah, we need a sponsor. That'd be great. So I'm going to tighten this up there by hand. Oh, and then I'm going to have to cut off for a sec because I got to pump up the compressor. You don't want to hear that, so I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah.
Now we're going to use the impact wrench and tighten up this nut on here. That'll be plenty tight. If you want to get real fancy, you could torque it, but guarantee you any shop that works on it's never going to torque it. The only thing I ever torqued was things on race cars, so as long as it's tight, that's all that matters. We just don't want it to come off. Then I'm going to put the cotter pin back through like that and bend it over. There's my pliers here. Get started and I'll tap it down, tighten it up. I gotta go get a different hammer. Be right back. You on? Then I'm gonna bend over the cotter pin. Make sure it's tight. I'll get down underneath and hold the bottom while it bends it over so it doesn't move. This is a pretty big hole in this one compared to the pin that's through it, so it's a little bit sloppy. I gotta make sure it doesn't move around. easier said than done. Has many things.
There you go.
There, now it's tight, won't move anywhere. And we're good. All right, we're gonna put the emergency brake assembly back on there. So I'll slide it around there like that. And the actuator, it goes in this top hole right up in here, slides through that pin there. And put it in there like that. It goes together in there like that. And then we've got this piece that we took out. Remember that little oblong hole and the bigger gap goes over on this side, so it'll slip back in there like this. Okay. There, like that. Oh, yeah, and then that pops out. I gotta get that back in there. It's kind of like a puzzle getting this all back together with everything in place, but that's what working on cars is like. So I get that pin of the lever back through there. Like that. Okay. Now when we're putting this spacer back in there, you'll see that the reason why this wide part has to go on this side is because you've got that actuator lever for the emergency brake, and it goes right here up against the side of the brake shoe, and the wide part has to hold both of those together. So it goes in there and holds, it goes on both sides of those, so that's why the wide part is there. And so we'll get that back over here like this, and then get the narrow part in that other side of the brake shoe on the other side. Goes down on the bottom there. And now that's all back together. Now we just got to get the springs back on. So we left the springs on the bottom, and the black spring goes on this side, so it just slips into this hole, through the hole like that, and then we'll stretch it over. So it goes through there like that. The pliers, and stretch it over. Careful not to let it slip, because you can really kill yourself with those springs. If they come loose, they will do damage to your body, so be real careful with it. Get it over there and hooked around. Oh. These things are dangerous. There, got that one over there. And then the orange one goes on this side. So it hooks down here and goes through, and then I'll stretch it up there over that hook. also the other end goes down through that little oblong hole there. So it's quite a process here to get it hooked over that and in that little hole there. They make it about as hard as they possibly could.
Oh, it come up from the hole.
I know. I'm gonna have to get a better pair of pliers. We're gonna put the pins back through to hold the shoe to the faceplate. And remember those pins that come from the back and go through here? It won't come all the way out. If you push it back, it'll stop, but it will go back far enough that makes it hard to work with. So I'm putting a screwdriver back here behind the pin that will keep it pushed out this way. And then I line up the flat part of the pin in this direction here so that it will go through the slot on the clip here. And then I'll turn the pin 90 degrees to hold it into that little divot there to hold it in place. So I'm gonna tap the screwdriver in just lightly, just so it'll stay there, so I don't have to hold it. And then I'll put the clip over like that, and then I'll push it in with the screwdriver to compress it. So it's got to get it right through that hole like that. And then that's what usually happens, but you just do it again. A lot of this stuff takes a few tries to get it. Gotta have patience. And get that through there. Okay, now it went through. Now I gotta push it down, and I gotta turn it with the needle nose here so that it's 90 degrees and it'll hold itself in place. You can swear when you're doing this. I can't. I don't know if that thing. Oh, push that thing back all the way. Put it up there. Compress it. And I'm going to use my duckbill pliers because they're more sturdy than a pair of needle nose. Be able to get a hold of that flat spot on that pin and turn it 90 degrees to lock it into place. So see, now it's lined up with that groove right there, and it's holding it into place. So the pin is locked in. I can take the screwdriver out the back, and then we'll just do the same thing on the other side. So move over here, and I'll find the pin on the back here. Make sure it goes through the hole over here. I will put the screwdriver in from the back to hold it into place, like that. Push the thing over, line it up in the vertical position there, put the clip over. Compress it with the screwdriver, like that. Oh. So, process, it doesn't work the first time every time. Let's see here, I gotta get that line back up again. lost the pin. And I need to put the screwdriver on the back here again. Hold the pin in place. And it's not staying there. There, I think I've got it in place there. I gotta line it up in the vertical position. No, that's not holding it. Let's get that in place there. Put the clip over the top. Line it up and compress it. All right, well, it took a bunch of tries to get the one on this side because it wasn't as easy to jam a screwdriver back there to hold that pin. I had to get help from another person to hold that. I was trying to do this as a one-man job, but it did take a third hand. So anyway, just held back there from a screwdriver, pushed the pin this way, and did the same deal as over there. Slipped it through the clip, pressed the clip down, turned it 90 so that it went back down into that little slot there and hold that into position. Now we've got the little spacer in there in the proper orientation like we talked about before. We already did that spring there. So I'm going to do the last spring, the orange one. And it should be a lot easier now that we've got everything else in place. There's not anything flopping around anymore. Potentially. All right, now we got everything all tied down with the clips on the pins and everything, holding all these parts down to the faceplate. So the last thing we got to do is fight with this last orange spring, and it's a little tricky because it goes around here, but then also the end of it here has to go through that little hole down here. Shine the light. The little hole down there in this spacer. So it's, as most things with brakes, it's an almost impossible type of a thing to get everything in the right place at the right time and lined up. But we'll give it a try here. We'll get it one way or the other. So I put the tip down into that slot first and see if that'll work, and try and get this over the thing. Not sure which is the quickest and easiest. Okay, let's try it without putting that in there first. So I can get that over there. And no, we're gonna have to put it down through that slot first. I don't think there's any way to get that on there afterwards. So we'll get that up over the hook now. Okay, there. Oh, that wasn't too bad. So that went over there. It's over the deal there, and then the end is down through that little oval hole in the clip here. So everything is back together. We're good to go. So then the next thing we're going to do is put the rotor back on, which also doubles as the brake drum, which is a pretty interesting system they got here. Get the excess dirt out of there. And you'll see also that there's a little rubber plug in here from the outside. And if you want to adjust the brake for the emergency brake, you pop out that plug, and then you can use the screwdriver to turn that star wheel down there to adjust it. But we're not going to mess with that now because it was in good adjustment when I took it apart. So we don't need to do that. We'll stick this back on there. Get it lined up. Get that over there like that. And boom. Got that on. Now we just got to put the brake caliper back on, which is pretty easy, luckily. So we'll slide that over. By the way, I'm sure you probably know this, but I'll just say the obvious. While you have the brake caliper off, never let anybody hit the brake pedal, because that will push the piston out here, and then you have a mess trying to get everything pushed back in and back together. So don't let kids or anybody hop in and press on the brake pedal while you've got this apart, or you're going to be pretty sorry. Oh, this brake pad looks like popped out here a little bit, so I gotta get that back into place there so we can get it over there. And it's also another spring type of a situation, so I push those back together there and get that over. Slide it back over like this. Like that. Get over there like that. Get the 2 bolts and stick them back through. One on the top and one on the bottom. Get those started. Okay, turn it off. Tightened up the 2 bolts to hold the caliper on, and we are finished. All I gotta do is just put the tire back on, take it off the jack stands. We'll take it out for a test drive and we'll see if the noise went away. But after hearing that bearing, after we took that hub off there, I'm 99.9999% sure that was the problem. So it was a little bit harder than I expected, just because I wasn't expecting to come in from the back to try and fish through all this whole assembly here to get to those 4 bolts to hold the hub on. But all in all, it wasn't all that bad. The hardest part, as usual, was the brake parts. So it's this kind of a combination of a disc brake and a drum brake all built into one, which the drum brake was the hardest part of everything. I'm glad they have pretty much eliminated those from most cars, but they do that for the emergency brake for this, which is interesting. But we got it all back together, and it's not that bad. So if you got to do it, good luck. Okay, we're out for a test drive after the repair, and you remember how noisy it was before we did it. Now I'll shut up for a second and you can hear that there's almost no noise, just the normal tire and road noise. It's so quiet now I don't have to crank up the radio to cover up the noise. We've got a quiet car again and we're happy. Thanks for watching, and
Don't forget to subscribe.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.